Hello and welcome to another edition of Foreign Dispatches, the program that takes you around the world in 25 minutes. I'm Teniola Shoboale. On the program this week, UN climate change report sounds code red for humanity, plus Greece and the US battle deadly wildfires. A major UN scientific report says human activity is changing the climate in unprecedented and sometimes irreversible ways. UN scientists warn that unless emissions are slashed, temperatures will cross the 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold within 2 decades.
Deadly heat waves, wildfires destroying US towns and Greek and Serbian forests, Greenland's melting ice sheet, Germany's devastating floods. The world is dangerously close to runaway global warming, and it's unequivocally caused by humans. That was the dire warning from the UN panel on climate change on Monday, August 9th. The report by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, warns that greenhouse gas levels in the atmosphere are already high enough to disrupt the climate for decades, if not centuries. Unless emissions are drastically reduced, average global temperatures are likely to cross the 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold within 20 years.
Basically everywhere.
Friederike Otto of the University of Oxford, who co-authored the IPCC report, says global warming is now irreversible.
There is no denying that some of the impacts are irreversible on centuries, on timescales of centuries to come, and this is really important to know also that climate change is a fact. It's already happening. It's no matter what not going to go away. So adapting to climate change is something as a policymaker you will probably want to keep in mind. And so if we stop warming at 1.5 degrees, then we will also stop many of these extremes from getting worse. And I think that, and while we are committed to some changes, particularly sea level rise, glacier melt, still to come for many decades, we can slow these changes down, and we can stop many of the others from getting worse by urgently and drastically reducing CO2 emissions in the next decade.
Drawing on more than 14,000 scientific studies, the report gives us the most comprehensive and detailed picture yet of how climate change is altering the natural world and what could still be ahead.
It is indisputable that human activities are causing climate change and making extreme weather events more frequent and severe. Second, it shows that climate change is affecting every region on our planet. And lastly, it explains that strong, rapid, sustained reductions in carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gas emissions would be required to limit global warming.
Describing the report as a code red for humanity, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres urged an end to the use of coal and other highly polluting fossil fuels. The 1.1 degree warming already recorded has been enough to unleash catastrophic heat waves, floods, hurricanes and fires across the globe.
Atmosphere has been exposed to doping, which means that we have begun observing climate extremes more often than before. That means record-breaking temperatures, drought, forest fires observed also this year and also during these days in Greece, in California, for example. We have also more water vapor in the atmosphere, which has led to severe flooding problems as observed in Central Europe and China recently with several casualties, unfortunately. Have we lost the hope? No one, yes. According to this report, we are still having a chance to stop the negative climate trend during the mid of this century by especially limiting the use of fossil fuels and by stopping deforestation. Some changes will continue for centuries or even thousands of years, like sea level rise, melting of glaciers, and shrinking of Arctic sea ice and snow cover. We are not yet heading towards Paris limits 1.5 to 2 degrees warming by the end of this century. At UN, our aim is to reach 1.5 degree warming level, which would be best for the welfare of mankind and biosphere. Now we are heading towards 2 to 3 degrees warming instead. The message of the IPCC report is crystal clear. We have to raise the ambition level of mitigation. The forthcoming COP26 meeting in Glasgow this November will be a critical milestone to combat climate change.
These reports are very
Greenpeace UK Executive Director says now scientists have told them what's happening, governments have to stop hitting the snooze button.
You know, it's a bit like an alarm clock. You can keep switching the alarm clock off, but eventually, if you don't get out of bed and go to wherever you're meant to be going to, it will be too late. You won't get there in time. And I think that this is what this report really is saying. Listen, the alarm clock has gone off many times. This is probably the last report that will be written before we go through and beyond 1.5 degree C, unless we act now. And that's quite a stark warning. You know, the rich countries agreed more than 10 years ago to put a pot of money together to help developing countries deal with climate change. 10 years later, they have still not got that money together. The trust from the developing countries in the rich world is collapsing as a result of that. When governments know the crisis that we're facing, why are they not acting?
Activist Greta Thunberg, who has rallied youth to protest for climate action worldwide, says while awareness of climate change is increasing, governments are not talking about the root cause of the climate crisis.
We have not once been treating this crisis like an actual crisis. And of course, media is reporting now about extreme weather events and consequences of the climate crisis. But then again, we also have to remember that these are all just symptoms of the climate crisis. We're not talking about the root cause itself, the things that is actually fueling these events. We are not holding people in power accountable. We are not talking about the current best available science, what it says and how the situation looks like now. And we are especially not talking about the gap between what politicians are saying and what they are actually doing.
The IPCC report comes just 3 months before a major UN climate conference known as COP26 in Glasgow, Scotland. So far, nations' pledges have been inadequate, but they will be under pressure to commit to more ambitious action and substantial financing to go with it.
After the worst heat wave in decades, authorities in Greece battled massive wildfires for another week, with many residents forced to evacuate. The government has come under fierce criticism for its handling of the crisis.
On Greece's Evia Island, wildfires rage on. Residents have faced yet another difficult week from blazes ripping through the north. But on Tuesday, one village refused to listen to calls by authorities to leave their homes. Some 60 people live in Avgeria, and they have been on a continuous night patrol to keep the fires encircling their village away from inhabitants' home.
There is no way we will leave the village, because I believe I can help in some way. We are very afraid, but we have to stay.
More than 800 firefighters are tackling the blaze on Evia Island, which erupted over a week ago, including foreign forces from elsewhere in Europe and the Middle East. Athens National Observatory says at least 65,000 hectares of land have been burnt in fires in Greece, 46,000 in Evia alone. More than 2,000 residents and tourists have been evacuated from the island by ferry since Tuesday, August 3rd.
Terrible. I cannot explain to you, like in the horror movie. You see the horror movie, you got afraid and you tell to yourself, okay, this is movie. But now this is not the movie. This is our real life. This is horror that we live for the last 1 week.
Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis apologized on Monday for any failures in tackling the fires, promising to correct mistakes and pledging compensation to those that have lost property.
The last days have been the most difficult for our country in decades. We've been fighting and still are fighting a battle with all our forces, but we're facing a natural disaster of unprecedented dimensions. In just a few days, 586 fires broke out in all the corners of the country. Fires which, because of the unique heat wave and several months of drought, are difficult to put out.
The fires broke out last week during Greece's worst heat wave in 3 decades, with searing temperatures and dry heat causing tinderbox conditions. The heat wave has also led to the spread of wildfires across southern Italy and Turkey. Several hundred blazes have been reported.
And in the U.S., residents of the historic California gold rush town of Greenville have been left destitute after their town was completely destroyed by the Dixie Fire, now the second largest wildfire in California's history. Many say they have nothing left.
A U.S. town has been burnt to ashes after the second largest wildfire in California's history swept through, destroying homes and businesses. The Dixie Fire reached the historic gold rush town of Greenville on August 4th. Now all that remains are smoldering ruins. Greenville resident Jack Romero has lost everything.
Gone. It's gone. There's several times in the last week I've wished I could just go home. And then I remember you can't go home, there's nothing to go back to. Even if the house survived, like pretty much the rest of town is gone. There's no power, there's no water, there's everything's gone.
The Dixie Fire has now grown to almost 500,000 acres. More than 5,000 firefighters are tackling the blaze, which has been burning for almost a month, and it shows no sign of stopping anytime soon.
These towers of flame, several times higher than the trees, coming down the hill toward Greenville. So it was just very clear at that point that it was get out or be at risk of being gone.
Local communities are providing hope and a lifeline to their neighbors who have nothing left.
Well, I lost my beauty shop. So my way of making a living. I lost my house. My home is gone, and so many people that I know up there, and I'm seeing them here, which is great. But yeah, this is a great community, and everybody's just wanting to help.
This community is amazing. The local businesses, the local restaurants, the people, the churches, the organizations has been amazing. They just pour it out for people. Just everyday people. That's our neighbors. These are our family and our friends that have lost everything. So.
As Greenville residents try to pick up the pieces, the American Red Cross warns that this might not yet be the end of it.
One thing that really stands out to me is that some of the folks that have been evacuated many times over the past couple years. We've seen some folks who have come to a shelter for just a few days to return home, to come back again because of those evacuation warnings. So there's a lot of uncertainty for some folks who might not know what the status is of their home or what they're going back to.
California typically experiences peak fire season later in the year, but the state is on track to suffer even more burnt acreage this year than last, which was the worst fire season on record.
You're still watching Foreign Dispatches on Channels Television. Nigeria accounts for over 40% of all remittances to sub-Saharan Africa, but this trend appears to have slowed down, particularly in the last 2 years. Opinions vary on the reason for the drop in remittance figures, with many analysts putting it down to the COVID-19 pandemic. But a report released by the World Bank in May 2021 shows that in spite of the pandemic, diaspora remittance flows saw strong growth in other parts of sub-Saharan Africa, like Zambia, Kenya, Ghana, Mozambique and Zimbabwe. So what happened in Nigeria? Our correspondent Njioma Oyato speaks to some Nigerians in the UK to find out more.
Remittances by Nigerians in the diaspora are the second largest foreign exchange earners for the country. But in the past few years, the remittances have dropped a bit. And why is that? Why are Nigerians in the diaspora not investing as much money and sending as much money home as they used to? Leveraging investment partnerships is just one reason why National Diaspora Day this year focused on integration for peace and development. At a blended conference hosted by the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, participants spoke about the need to tap into the strength of Nigeria abroad. But a group of professionals around this table in northwest London also logged on, and they say a wider conversation must reflect the current realities of diasporans for reintegration to work.
It's actually disrespectful for them to talk about reintegration when Nigeria was the first place I'd ever lived in which my ethnicity was an issue. And I think it's the elephant in the room if we talk about reintegration when the federal government has a policy of isolating or deliberately diminishing the work ethic of particular minority groups.
These professionals feel there are gaps and a misalignment between what the government proposes to do and the expectations of those living in the diaspora. They speak of bureaucracy and red tape that often stands in the way of progress.
I actually started the process. I went to Yaba. I actually looked for the school of, where to register. I actually wanted to go through the whole process.
When was that?
You're talking about 10 years or more ago. Okay. I applied, filled out the application, paid my money to actually get so that I can start the process. Like I thought it would be as easy as coming to the UK when I see the foreign nurses come, they register with the NMC and they start the process of getting a placement. Because I was really interested to go back because for me, being a charity case is really not about the money. I would love to give back. Yeah. But as I speak to you, they never got back to me. The office moved from Yaba to Abuja and that was the end of that.
Perhaps those were the days when there was no formal institution for engaging the diasporans. The chairman of the commission mentioned integration initiatives like the National Diaspora Policy, the proposed Diaspora Awards, and the Nigeria Diaspora Investment Summit as engagement strategies.
I'll just say an integrated approach. We use all means, Nigerians already know about the commission that are there, our website, we're developing an app that will be available to every Nigerian in the diaspora. You can download the app and you can get a whole lot of information, of course, working with our missions.
And speaking of the task that lies ahead, the Director General of the World Trade Organization offers some insight.
So I think one thing you could do is really establish a one-stop shop where diasporans who want to do something at home can come and get information and get linked up to someone who would help them validate what they are doing. If they want to help in government, some of them have talents that we need. Why is it that Nigerians are doing so well outside, giving their expertise in other countries? And here we have a country so large and we can't do that easily.
The conversations on and offline are critical as they serve as the echo chamber of voices responding to the call for reintegration towards national development. As things stand, it might take a concerted effort to tap into the economic and investment power of Nigerians abroad.
And to Nigeria-South Africa relations, Nigeria has a new High Commissioner to the country. Ambassador Mohammed Haruna Manta from Niger State is the third High Commissioner in 4 years. He faces the huge task of strengthening the sometimes tense relationship between two of Africa's major economies. Speaking to Channels Television in Pretoria, Ambassador Manta says in line with the Nigerian government's stand on improving relations, trade and citizen-to-citizen diplomacy through exchanges will be his priority areas.
Ambassador Mohammed Haruna Manta, a retired career diplomat, is Nigeria's third High Commissioner to South Africa in 4 years. He served in countries like Sierra Leone, Sudan, Saudi Arabia, and Bangladesh. And he outlined his priorities in a country where relations sometimes get strained, especially at citizen-to-citizen level.
I have come with a very straightjacket request from me to my fellow Nigerians that citizenship diplomacy is paramount. Number two, we are going to promote interaction on the basis of trade. We are also going to look after our children in terms of our enrollment in schools and our participation in the academic activities, aiming towards excellence. Number three, the issue of cultural exchanges.
Already, the new High Commissioner, accompanied by his wife, Hawa, has had a chance to meet just some of the various socio-cultural, political, professional, and religious Nigerian groupings who seized the opportunity to fill him in on the goings-on as well as their expectations. The event was hosted by the Nigerian Consul General, Abdul Malik Ahmed.
At this point, I want to urge you to continue to render your full cooperation, your unalloyed cooperation, to the new Excellency, His Excellency, in the discharge of his functions. Because we are here because of you. Without you, probably the Nigerian government would probably not establish missions here.
One of the challenges Ambassador Manta will definitely be seized with is the issue of the many Nigerians who are on the wrong side of South Africa's immigration laws.
That group in itself is that they make things fairly difficult for us. In the event somebody throws his passport away, and he comes to you and says he's a Nigerian, the South African government insists on proof. He doesn't have any problem. Because of the offense he has committed, he doesn't want to associate with that passport that brought him in. So he throws it off. So first of all, the challenge is for us to re-establish his citizenship as a Nigerian before we can now offer consular assistance. So that in itself is a problem.
Hopefully, this will form part of the agenda at the next Nigeria-South Africa Binational Commission when South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa pays a state visit to Nigeria tentatively in the last quarter of this year.
And finally, couples were put to the test in Hungary this week as they took part in the nation's wife-carrying race. The wife-carrying tradition dates back to the Viking Age, but was recently established in Finland, where it has taken place since the 1990s. Take a look.
Husbands carry their wives through rough terrain and through giant muddy puddles as they take part in Hungary's second wife-carrying contest. A previous race in October attracted only a dozen couples, but this year, with fewer coronavirus restrictions in place, the race attracted around 40 married couples.
The rise in the number of participants is due to the fact that we have put more energy into it. We've been calling for participants since January. We decided to go ahead with it this summer by all means because we've just emerged from a difficult period due to the coronavirus, and we all need to go and have fun in the open air and try to take a deep breath and leave this difficult period behind.
The wife-carrying tradition has roots in Viking lore, but was recently established in Finland, where it has taken place since the 1990s. The objective is for the male to carry the female through a special obstacle track in the fastest time. Couples prepare for months on end ahead of the challenging race.
It feels good to win. We tried all sorts of technique during the training. We did the fireman's hold, carrying her on my shoulder and on my back.
Estonian races have lent their name to the Estonian style of wife carrying, with the wife upside down and her feet over her husband's shoulders rather than a classic piggyback. The wife-carrying championship is considered one of the 7 most bizarre feats of strength events in the world, with competitions also held in Finland, Australia, the UK, USA, India, Hong Kong and Germany.
Well, this is where we say goodbye till next time. Remember, our top stories are never far away. You can catch them on channelstv.com. Thank you so much for watching the program. I'm Teniola Shobowale. Stay safe.